Tale of Two Thieves, Chapter 9. The Tug-O-War. One would think it impossible for time to actually stand still, but the impossible became reality during those few short hours before the dreaded meeting. Time ran out of gas and stalled. Arriving at my associate's place, I told him what had happened during the merchandise return. He seemed suspiciously cool and relaxed. Then, adding to my suspicion, he informed me that he was tired and he needed to have a nap. At that, he proceeded to leave the room and go to bed. This drove me nuts. How could he sleep? My guts were at war with themselves. I knew that we were not going to just walk away from this. I was convinced of it. Yet by looking at my associate, you would never think he was going to a meeting where blood was going to be shed. My paranoia began to grow as I thought about my blood flowing, my hand being cut off. How painful would it be? How long would it take for a stump to heal? I wondered. Could I bleed to death? What could I do with only one hand? Or even worse, and just as likely, would my life end in a lonely field while my associate quietly drove home from the meeting? He had delivered the real thief, and for payment, he is rewarded with the greatest payment, his life. Maybe I was getting set up by a criminal version of Crime Stoppers. How was I to know what story he really told them while standing in that field with a .45 pointed at his face? He could have totally ratted me out. He could have conveniently left out the part of the story where he encouraged me to steal the stuff. He could have made it sound like I had stolen it and later told him about it. He merely was an innocent bystander who was asked to find a buyer for some illegal substances. As my fears gripped me, I could almost hear his pleas for mercy when he was standing in that field. How was I to know that the drugs were stolen? He just asked me to find a buyer for them. That's all I know, he would have told them with his most innocent face. Thoughts like this tormented me as I sat in his empty living room, trying to find some hope, some escape from this impossible trap I found myself in. It was beginning to get dark outside, making the already plain bachelor place appear duller, emptier, and more depressing. If it hadn't been for the possibility that my associate might walk in on me, I would have cried like a baby. I was overcome with despair and desperation. It hit me that my life was in the hands of this man I barely knew. The only connection I had with him was black market dealings. I had never really trusted him. In the depths of my heart, I always thought that he was a cheat. This wasn't mere speculation. I knew firsthand that this man had little to no loyalty to those he called friend. Months earlier, he had offered me a similar job where I broke into a home of a drug dealer and cleaned him out of drugs, money, and household items. In that job, my associate actually gave me the key to the place and told me to break the window on my way out, just to make it look like a break-in. Why would he have the key? He had the key because he knew the victim. He was a supposed friend. I had trusted in the words of a man who I knew was not trustworthy, a man who stole from his friends, and now I was going to pay for this crime alone, and he was going to walk away free. What a horrible trade. I'm not going to this stupid meeting, I whispered to myself. If I was being set up, then I wasn't going to go. Instead, I would head back home and go into hiding. Maybe I could leave the country for a while. I had money saved up, so I could use it to split town. Then I thought about my mom. What would happen to her? Would he hurt her? These thoughts began to plague me. No matter how hard I tried to push them out of my mind, they kept coming back. I knew my old friend was not someone to cross. Back in the days when we hung out, he told me often never to betray him. He warned me to be loyal to friends, especially in the crime world. Crossing the wrong person, and you could end up with a third eye. As he gave this verbal warning, he made his thumb and index finger into a gun and aimed it at my forehead. The gesture was understood clearly. As I dwelt on his words, I wondered if tonight's meeting was going to make me into a Cyclops or Captain Hook. Neither option held much appeal. Finally, my associate emerged from his room and informed me that it was time to go. I told him that I was contemplating not going to the meeting. He received this news in a way that unnerved me. He calmly told me that the choice was up to me, no pressure. Confusion gripped me, but paranoia already had inserted its dirty claws in me, pushing and tugging. What should I do? Should I go and possibly be killed? Should I run and maybe have Mum pulled into this? I felt like screaming. I told my associate I needed more time to think about it. I remembered that my car was low on gas, so I used this as an excuse for extra time. We drove to the gas station in separate cars, and I filled mine up. When I got back to my car after paying, my associate was standing beside it, waiting. "So, what have you decided?" he asked quietly. I looked into his eyes, wishing I could somehow read his mind, to see what was going on inside, hoping some answer would come to me. Nothing. In the next minute, I nearly unraveled. I began a debate within myself on why I should and shouldn't go to this meeting. All the while, my associate stood there, waiting patiently as he watched my inner turmoil. He looked at his watch and then at me. "It's almost 10 o'clock. Are you going to come or not?" he asked again, without the slightest strain in his voice. Not knowing why I answered the way I did, I finally responded to his question. "Yeah, I'll come," I said in a state of near desperation. We both climbed into our vehicles, and I proceeded to follow him to the restaurant where we were supposed to meet. As we neared the restaurant, I began to wonder, would I ever see my mum's face again?